I said in my opening speech, there's a stir in the land, and there's a mood of uneasiness. We feel adrift in an uncharted and stormy sea. We feel we've lost our way. As I say, I used those words in launching my campaign for the presidency of the United States.
And so that was Barry Goldwater, a then two-time elected senator from Arizona who would soon face off against Lyndon B. Johnson in the 1964 presidential election. Now, would Goldwater win? Absolutely not, but that's not the point. Goldwater is sang by many to be the father of modern-day conservatism in the United States. And it would be hard to deny as much. Goldwater advocated for a strong military, as was evident in his much controversial stance that nuclear authority should be conferred to generals in times of war. Secondly, Goldwater would advocate for a 25% reduction in the income tax in 1964. Thirdly, Goldwater wanted to do all of this while still managing a balanced budget. And so since then, modern republicanism has been defined by a trivium: a strong military, low taxes, and a balanced budget. Goldwater's views focused on a tinge of social uncertainty that American public life had yet had taste for. But going further here, many of Goldwater's social views, including questions of disaffected youth and the criminal element, still have their stake in Republican politics today. And so LBJ would go on to be president for another 4 years. In the latter half of his presidency, the first Super Bowl happened, if that's the type of thing that piques your interest. Regardless, though, those ideas would still remain a part of the Republican platform. In fact, many Republican platforms would take these ideas much further, as in the case of the 1968 Republican platform that Nixon ran on. And this platform would target what it viewed as the welfare state hurting the family unit, disaffected young people, and the criminal element. And at this point in the conversation, you may know exactly where we're at. You may realize that Nixon is going to do crime in the 1970s.
People have got to know
he's going to have to step down as president.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
President,
Yes, sir.
Then be replaced by Gerald Ford, who would then be replaced by a very, very lackluster Democrat candidate, Jimmy Carter. And from here on out, you must know the story.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ronald Reagan.
And since Reagan, even some things have changed. Whereas Reagan may have exercised his rhetorical prowess and the United States military power to increase liberalization throughout the world and as a result free trade, even though he did bend the knee to some protectionist measures in terms of tariffs, we would still see through the Trump administration many tariffs, isolationist military policy, etc. So we're going to be playing cards today. I don't know if you've played cards before, but I really like cards, and I also think this is an efficient way to convey the stakes that are at hand in tonight's debate. Realistically, we unfortunately are starting things out here with a locked character. Not really my idea. It was actually his idea, but mind you, it does not matter. We're just going to use this card to kind of figure out how the game's going to be played here. Realistically, what we're going to be looking at is a candidate's respective power number, followed by 3 respective skills: debate skills, relevance and experience. I think those are great things to base your judgment of a debate on, and the public's perception of a debate. So realistically, this candidate doesn't have any.
And so this next candidate here is a soft lob. He's Big Ron from Florida down there. Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who should be doing much better in this race. He's not. Things happen, I guess, but what can you do about it? Ron here, we decided to give a 1 out of 3 for debate skills. And it's primarily because every time I see this guy get in front of a microphone, he just gets snooty with a journalist. He never has anything of substance to say. If you asked me maybe 8 months to a year ago, I'd tell you otherwise. I'd tell you that maybe he was pretty eloquent on the microphone and he would make good points. Although I don't think his traction is going to go further than this Florida voter base here. And that's unfortunate for Ron. Me, I guess I get to laugh at it. For relevance here, we gave Ron a 2 out of 3. I think that he, again, if you asked me 4 or 5 months ago, even in this instance, he should have had the nomination in his hand. He would actually have a 3 out of 3 here. And I don't want to say in his hand, but he should at least be contending with Trump way more than he is. So we gave him a 2 out of 3 for that reason. He's a culture warrior. He threw way too many hooks in the culture war when he should have been running on results. People definitely appreciated his parent choice endeavors in some of those bills there and some of the things he signed into effect. Although I think he could have done much better focusing on COVID, for instance. Even spending more time attacking Trump instead of deflecting there would have benefited him in the long run. So we're going to give him a 2 out of 3 there. And then for experience, we're going to give him a 2 out of 3. Most people who have held the executive in their respective state as governor, I would give it 3 out of 3 here. But I've seen so much malpractice in terms of, his campaign here and the decisions they made and the internal struggles of the campaign and everything they have going on there. What they tell him to say, the things that come out of this guy's mouth are bewildering at times. And I'm going to make a video about it later on, but he just says some wacky stuff, and I think he expects people to be on board. Ron DeSantis is a story of hubris. It is a tragedy. No, I don't know if it is a tragedy, but it is tragic. So we're going to give him 3 wild card points. I think he does have some bearings, I think every now and then he could hit us with something good tonight, but I really doubt it. I don't think he's going to do anything crazy. But 3 wild points because he did have a good year. I think his head's full of air or something. I really can't put my head around it. But we're going to give him a power number of 58. That's just what he's working with. That's what we decided to give him. That's accounting for those 3 respective skills. Average them out. Whatever the terminology would be there, and then add the 3 wild card points, and that gets us this 58 number, which I guess is entertaining for me, like I said, but too bad for Ron.
Next up, we have someone who I have the utmost respect for, and I actually enjoy hearing her speak. It would be Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, we're going to give a 2 out of 3 for debate skills. I think she's well polished. I think she speaks very well. I think she has a great level of tenacity stepping into this race and kind of still choosing to deviate from the Trump wing of the party here, particularly in terms of the Ukraine, the war in Ukraine right now. And so she's definitely an interesting candidate. But we're going to give her a 2 out of 3 on debate skills because I'm confident in her ability to hold her own up there. She will be the only woman up there. I think that even gives her a few bonus points insofar as that goes. There will probably be, so far as that goes, there will probably be a question about that. I'm sure there will be a question about that. And then in terms of relevance, 2 out of 3, she's definitely not the first name out of people's mouths when they're talking about this, but a lot of people really like Nikki Haley. A lot of people know that she is the former governor of South Carolina, and I think she's kind of ran the race here close to home, so I can get behind her as a candidate. And then for experience here, we've given her a 3 out of 3. Again, when you hold the executive, I'm just going to give you a 3 out of 3, depending how good you did. And it seems the perception of Nikki Haley down there in South Carolina is a positive one. So we're going to lead with her getting experience 3 out of 3. And she also served on a Trump administration as an ambassador to the UN. So she's cooking up there. We're going to give her a 79. Not only that, we're going to add 2 wildcard points to make it that 79. Pardon me. So 77 without it, plus 2, 79 power number. And then we're going to move on to Vivek Ramaswamy. He's getting a 3 out of 3 for debate skills. Like, there's no way that he's not getting a 3 out of 3 for debate skills. He goes into these like progressive line stands. He mostly goes anywhere. He goes anywhere that anybody will have him. That's kind of the thing that people say about him. And it's very true. And so I think he's reliable insofar as debates go and as far as speaking what he's trying to say and articulating his points. And he really speaks on tough issues, and he's willing to hear people out on what their lived truth is, which I can always respect in a candidate. Not that he's perfect. And so as far as relevance goes, we're going to give him a 3 out of 3. I think he played the culture war much better than Big Ron did, and I primarily think that's because he's lived it. So, you know, he was a pharmaceutical entrepreneur forever. He's kind of seen the way that these kind of big businesses, these big corporations, these big asset management firms can kind of, you know, put their clutches on the hands of business and government. And so Vivek Ramaswamy actually left his pharmaceutical company a few years ago to kind of pursue a career in the political sphere. And so he actually created his own asset management firm in the process to appeal to conservative states and conservative investors alike. So very interesting there from Vivek Ramaswamy. I think that makes him relevant. I think that makes him more than relevant. And I think his appearance on all of these podcasts makes him more than relevant. And so for experience, we're going to have to give him a 1 out of 3. I think he's definitely dabbled in politics, but I would like to see him doing this kind of stuff for a few more years before I'm comfortable with giving him anything higher than a 1 out of 3. All of these numbers are pseudoscientific. There's nothing I pulled from you know, they're just on a whim and from my head, and I think these are just the best way to look at these candidates. And so Vivek closes out with an 81 overall power number. It's the highest of the people I have up here. I think that this debate is the moment that he's been waiting for, and it's going to help him. There's no way that this debate can hurt Vivek Ramaswamy. There's just no way. Okay. 46, we're moving on to somebody that I don't know why they're running. I guess good for them. Chris Christie, I don't hate him. I think that makes it seem like I hate Chris Christie. I don't. One thing I do want to say, though, is that I think he's going to have a 1 out of 3 in debate skills. I don't think I've seen him perform that crazy in a debate. I think the funniest thing I've ever seen in a debate is when Marco Rubio said the same thing twice, and Chris Christie successfully called him out on it. So calling out Robo Rubio there, really good stuff. I'll give you that, buddy. But you're still going to 1 out of 3 on debate skills. As far as relevance goes, 1 out of 3. Like, why are you running, dude? You haven't done anything in years, as far as I can tell. Like, I don't know what you get into, but as far as I've read, like, you were a governor 8 years ago, and I think you still think you're relevant because, like, you just want to challenge Donald Trump. Which Trump not being there hurts both his debate skills points, in my opinion, and his relevance points as well. Lastly here, we're talking about experience. I mean, 2 out of 3, like, okay governor, I guess. Like, people respect him. Again, like, normally I'd strive to give an executive a 3 out of 3 in a category like this. But I had to deduct him something. He has, like, I feel like every time this guy talks, he's yelling at me. And maybe that's a debate skills thing to worry about, but I just can't stand him. But anyway, okay. Here we got Tim Scott. Tim Scott, I really like Tim Scott. Me giving him the rating that he has, this number 59 power number, it's not too. I like him. It just I don't think he's gonna pull out of this like a winner. I think he's proficient in terms of debates. Like I've seen him debate a few times, but I'm not. It's not anything to write home about. I think he's a really intriguing guy though. So we're gonna give it 2 out of 3 for debate skills. 1 out of 3 for relevance. Like nobody's talking about him. I feel like more people should be, but he just has no buzz around him right now. And I primarily think it's because he is such a what would the terminology be? Just a super down to earth candidate. I think even when Democrats think of like well intended, principled Republicans, they think of people like Tim Scott. And unfortunately, I don't think many people have the taste for that in public life anymore. And then for Tim Scott's experience points, we're going to give him a 2 out of 3. Again, senator from South Carolina. It will be interesting to see him butt heads with Nikki Haley, for instance. But that's really all I have on Rick Scott. We're going to give him 4 wild card points just because I do like him and I want to see him kind of outshine some people tonight. That the power numbers are, irrelevant as far as he's concerned. But I think those numbers are accurate to what I'd expect to see from him. Mike Pence, again, I feel like I inflated his score, but I think he's coming in he's very conservative, no pun intended. Like I think he's going to come in and just play it. He's just going to play it cool, calm, and collected. We haven't seen much from him, but his debate with Kamala Harris, he did really outperform her. He did outsmart her. He was able to really make the case for what he was saying without coming off as too polarizing. He was the yin to Trump's yang. And so we're going to give him, for debate points, a 2 out of 3. I think a jack of all trades here. For relevance, we're going to give him a 2 out of 3. And primarily because in terms of relevance, like he hasn't been afraid to kind of throw hooks at Trump in terms of the, I guess, the Capitol debacle, the thing that happened at the Capitol, the Capitol thing, the Capitol, the thing that happened at the Capitol, at that one time at the Capitol where they, the Capitol thing. So, he did. So I think he was able to successfully call Donald Trump out on that. And then, whether or not it benefited him, I don't really know, but he was successfully able to kind of get out of there. It's going to hurt him though. Like, it's not like it, like if you, and that's one thing you've kind of picked up on a lot of these candidates, particularly in the instance of Vivek Ramaswamy. Like Vivek has successfully rode Trump's coattails to this percentage he's sitting at the polls. Not that he's sitting anywhere close to Trump or DeSantis, but he really did successfully ride the coattails there. And you can kind of see where playing the Trump card right made sense and playing it wrong really didn't make sense, and it hindered your ability to perform in the race. So it's his party, man. It's his party. It's his show. He's just having a good time, and I guess we're all just in for the ride. And so we're gonna give Mike Pence a 3 out of 3 for experience. I mean, he was the guy's president, and I don't even mean to be like that, but he was his vice president. And so we're gonna give Mike Pence a 3 out of 3 for experience, primarily for his work as vice president. I think he's had an administrative role or an executive role there. He had it for 4 years. He's been, in politics for some time. So I think on that notion, he's not gonna win out. But I think that 78 power number I gave him makes a lot of sense. And so that's really what we're working with there. That has been the card game so far. We have a few other things we're gonna look into here. Most importantly, I would actually like to do some matchups. And so one matchup that I'm particularly interested in, just because I think it'd be humorous, is I'm actually super interested in the interaction between DeSantis and Chris Christie tonight. I just think that would be hilarious. I don't know about you, just seeing those two up there, especially because like Chris Christie has called DeSantis out in the past, particularly in terms of DeSantis's handling of Disney and the ongoings down there in Disney as far as our jurisdiction goes. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that goes and how that plays into things there. I also just think these two are criminally hilarious. So I gotta say something about that. Moving forward, what we have here would be an interaction, I would presume, an exchange between Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy. I think Nikki Haley is a Trumper, but it's evident that she definitely has her eggs in other baskets, and I think the foreign policy thing is a clear indicator of that. So if the war does come up, I'd imagine that will be a place of tension for these two. I think there will be an exchange between Ron DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy, for example. There's actually a memo for one of the DeSantis PACs that he really needs to go after Ramaswamy. So we will see how that goes. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to the Politi-Talks. Thank you for tuning in to the Politi-Talks Republican Debate Special Part 1. I'm Quinn, and I'm in your house.